Imagine waking up on a Monday morning, opening your inbox, and discovering your colleague is on holiday. Again, not sick, not working from home, just off for 2 weeks, paid. Now imagine you're American, because this is usually the exact moment when confusion sets in, followed quickly by disbelief, then suspicion, and finally, one inevitable question. How on earth do Brits get away with this? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe, like my video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. To many Americans, the idea that workers in the UK routinely take weeks off every year feels almost fictional, like a rumor started on the internet or a clever European prank. But it's real, and once Americans find out just how many holidays Brits actually get, the reaction is often the same: shock, envy, and the quiet realization that something, somewhere, has gone very wrong. This is the story of why Britain shuts down so often and why that completely baffles America. Let's start with the number that causes most of the outrage. In the UK, full-time workers are legally entitled to at least 28 days of paid holiday every single year. That includes bank holidays. Some jobs offer more. Many do. Now pause. Breathe. Let that sink in. 28 days. Paid. By law. In America, there is no legal requirement for paid vacation at all. None. Zero. Zip. If you get paid leave, it's because your employer feels generous, or because you negotiated very well, or because you've been there long enough to earn it through loyalty and survival. So when Americans hear that a British employee can legally disappear for over a month every year and still get paid, the response is rarely calm. Surely productivity collapses. Surely nothing gets done. Surely the country grinds to a halt. And yet, somehow, Britain continues to function. Roads still exist. Emails still get answered. Tea is still made at alarming rates. So how did this happen? To understand why Britain treats holidays like a basic human right, you have to go back to something Britain is very fond of reminding the world about. History. Britain industrialized early. Very early. And when factories took over cities, work became long, brutal, and relentless. 12-hour shifts. 6 days a week, sometimes 7. Eventually, people had enough. Trade unions emerged, labor movements grew, and the idea slowly took hold that workers weren't machines. They were people who needed rest. Time off wasn't seen as laziness. It was seen as survival. Fast forward a century or two, and those ideas became law. Paid holidays weren't a perk, they were protection. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, America was building a very different relationship with work. In the US, work became identity. Hustle became virtue. Long hours became proof of ambition. Taking time off didn't make you sensible, it made you suspicious. And that cultural divide never really closed. In Britain, asking for time off is normal, expected even. In America, it often feels like asking permission to betray the company. This is where the shock really sets in. Because Brits don't just take holidays, they plan their lives around them. Summer holidays are booked months in advance. The entire country quietly agrees that nothing important should be scheduled in August. Office is empty. Out-of-office replies multiply. Projects pause. And no one panics. Then there are bank holidays. 8 of them. Sometimes more if the monarchy is feeling celebratory. Royal weddings, jubilees, coronations. Entire nation off work. Americans watch this unfold like it's some sort of social experiment. You mean everything closes? Yes. And you're still paid? Also yes. To Americans, this sounds like chaos. To Brits, it's simply Tuesday, or Monday, or whichever day the bank holiday happens to land on this year. Of course, British holidays aren't spent dramatically lounging in luxury. That's a common misunderstanding. Many are spent in traffic on the M25, or in the rain, or standing in a queue for something that probably wasn't worth queuing for. But the point is, the time exists, and that alone feels revolutionary to people raised in a work-first culture. American reactions online tell the story perfectly. You get how many days off? Paid? Every year? And your boss can't say no? The disbelief is genuine, and often followed by a slightly darker realization. Americans don't just get fewer holidays. Many don't even use the ones they're offered. In the US, millions of vacation days go unused every year. People save them, hoard them, or simply feel too guilty to take them. In Britain, not taking your holiday is seen as strange, slightly concerning, like forgetting to eat lunch. Managers chase employees to book time off. HR departments panic if holiday balances pile up, because rest isn't optional. It's policy. And here's the part that really annoys American audiences. Despite all this time off, Britain doesn't collapse economically. In fact, studies repeatedly show that workers who rest properly are more productive, fewer burnouts, fewer mistakes, better morale. The British system isn't perfect. Salaries are often lower, complaints are constant, weather remains unforgivable. But when it comes to holidays, Britain quietly wins. This is where the humor creeps in. Brits don't boast about their holidays. They barely notice them. They simply assume they're normal. Meanwhile, Americans, discovering this information, react like archaeologists uncovering a lost civilization. You mean you just stop working? Yes. And no one calls you? Correct. And if they do, you ignore it. Exactly. The British work-life balance isn't about luxury. It's about boundaries. Clear, socially accepted boundaries. When you're off, you're off. That concept alone feels radical to many Americans. Which is why this topic sparks endless debate. Some Americans argue that fewer holidays drive ambition. Others quietly admit they'd trade almost anything for just one uninterrupted week off. Brits, watching this discussion unfold, mostly sip their tea and check how many days they have left this year. The truth is, neither system is perfect, but the contrast is stark. America rewards hustle. Britain protects rest. And when Americans finally see just how much time Brits get away from work, the shock isn't really about holidays. It's about a different philosophy of life, one where working to live matters more than living to work. And perhaps that's why this discovery feels so unsettling, because once you know another system exists, it's hard to forget it. So the next time a British office is mysteriously empty or an entire country seems to vanish for a bank holiday, remember, it's not laziness, it's tradition, it's law. And most of all, it's booked, approved, and fully paid. And somewhere, an American is still trying to process that. And just when Americans think they've wrapped their heads around British holidays, there's another detail that tends to push them completely over the edge. Sick leave. In the UK, calling in sick is not treated like a confession of moral failure. You don't have to sound apologetic. You don't have to prove your loyalty. You certainly don't have to work through it. Just in case. You're ill. You stay home. End of discussion. To Americans, this feels dangerously relaxed. In the US, many workers drag themselves to work, coughing, sneezing, and barely functional, because sick days are limited, unpaid, or quietly discouraged. In Britain, turning up visibly ill is more likely to earn you concerned looks and a gentle suggestion to go home before you infect the entire office. And then there's parental leave. This is where the disbelief turns into full existential crisis. In the UK, maternity leave can last up to a year. Some of it paid, some of it protected. Fathers also get leave. Not as much, but enough to be acknowledged as actual parents. American viewers hearing this often pause the video, rewind, and listen again. A year? Yes, a year. Suddenly, British holidays no longer look like an isolated perk. They're part of a wider system that treats life events as important, and work is something that should fit around them, not consume them entirely. Of course, Brits still complain, constantly, about everything, especially work. But beneath the sarcasm and the moaning is an unspoken agreement. That life doesn't stop because your job exists. And this is the moment when many Americans stop laughing. Because it's no longer just amusing, it's revealing. Different countries didn't just choose different policies, they chose different priorities. So when Americans say they're shocked by British holidays, what they really mean is this. They're shocked that another way of living has been quietly working all along. And once you see that, it's hard to unsee it.